walk through the logic of this one with me. Pretend that everybody in the storyline is reasonable. Just pretend. Let's suspend our disbelief. New York City, Eric Adams, the mayor who was once all of a sudden just so gung-ho to be a sanctuary city. He's down there at that first bus being driven up from Texas. He's just so proud of his city to bring all of these illegal immigrants in. Texas is just busing hundreds of buses. And Florida is sending people, and Arizona is sending people. Well, as New York City demands the migrant shelter landlords cut costs or risk leases being torn up, that's where they sit now. All of a sudden, the budget is busted. Sanctuary city, not so much. That law that requires everybody to have housing in New York City, can we get an exception on that? And then you landlords, we're going to need to cut your rent down that we are paying to you. Yeah, this isn't going to work out for us. Otherwise, we're just tearing up the leases. Gone. That's the state of the union in New York City. It's wild. Let's get into it. Here we go. Let's watch a little video. This is a school building where it's a center for, it doesn't say specifically what it's a center for, but it's either got housing or it's a center for getting everybody's information and trying to get people placed with different entities across the United States. This is in New York City. This is what it looks like. All down the sidewalk, around the block. Roosevelt Hotel in downtown New York is just continually just wrapped around the block. These are people waiting to get dispersed across the United States, get new housing in New York City. Got a 60-day rule now. They're just throwing people out. Go sleep on the streets of New York City. It should be fine. Go sleep on the streets of Chicago. It'll be fine. You've just got some insanity going on. All right, let's kill that one. Let's get into so Mayor Eric Adams is demanding that all migrant shelter landlords cut costs. Hey, we would love to rent some space from you. What's your price? Okay, yeah. So you sign a little lease, right? You sign a little lease. And the city's paying for it, so they'll be good for it, right? Right? Oh, not so much. Mayor Eric Adams' administration is demanding all migrant shelter landlords cut costs or risk their city-funded lease contracts being torn up. That's not legal. I mean, you're just completely just tearing up contract. Oh, yeah, that's no good. It's no good because we can't afford it. Therefore, you guys are out of luck. You want to deal with the city? That's what you get, right? As the Big Apple struggles with the surging price of housing asylum seekers, the Post has learned. Is it really it's a surge from the standpoint of there's just more and more and more coming into the city because so many of them have chosen New York City as their destination because they've heard through the grapevine that there's more opportunities in New York City. And in reality, they're getting kicked out and they're going to all kinds of other different cities across the United States as well, because there's no more room at the inn in New York City. New York City, Eric Adams has basically stated, you're ruining us. You're ruining the city. Well, the surging price of housing is because there's a surge of people. You got record levels of people coming across the southern border. We just had a one-day record number of 14,209 that they know of, that the federal, the entities at the Border Patrol have identified 14,000 people they had contact with. How many came across the border that weren't tabulated up, that weren't counted? Double that? I don't know. Is it a third of that? Half? I have no idea. Right? But a whole bunch of them get into the country that, they're here. They're here. In a letter fired off Tuesday, City Hall, New York City City Hall, called on the owners of every migrant shelter site to start offering up rent reduction proposals and other cost-saving measures. Just weeks after Hisner revealed a slew of citywide budget cuts to offset the multi-billion-dollar asylum seeker crisis. This is a crisis that you took on. Yeah, New York City, you took this on. You virtue signaled that you wanted to be a sanctuary city, and you're all so proud. But then when the rubber hits the road of, oh, our budget numbers are not looking up. Oh, yeah. Oh, wow. We're going to have to make some cuts. Eric Adams is talking about cutting the police department. How is that going to go with record levels of crime going through the roof? Yeah, not good, right? Not good. I mean, this is like saying, tax-paying citizens, well, you know what? Inflation has, it's really taken a bite out of our budget, out of our personal budget to run our lives. Therefore, we're just going to have to drop what we're paying in federal taxes. You're just going to have to make a concession and drop those federal taxes because we can't pay them. We can't afford it. That is what, from a position of power, that's what the city of New York is doing. You guys got to make some budget cuts. I mean, how just absolutely crappy is that? It doesn't surprise me that they're doing this at all. All right. So we made a mistake. Somebody else got to pay. Who's going to pay? Because we're all out of paying. We don't have any money left because who knew that this would literally cost us billions of dollars long term? Who knew that? We thought we were just going to be able to virtue signal being a sanctuary city and it was all going to work out hunky dory and, a few thousand to come our way. And, we get all the street cred. Oh yeah, we took some too. But the reality is this is a massive, massive financial undertaking because these people need, all kinds, not only housing, but food and medical, and somebody's got to pay for that. Somebody's got to pay for all of that, right? The city is forced to re-examine all costs related to the provision of services to migrants, including real estate costs at sites currently serving as respite centers or humanitarian emergency response and relief centers, HERCs. Molly Schaeffler, the city's director, Office of Asylum Seeker Operations, wrote in the letter obtained by the Post. So any contract that the city of New York signs is basically not valid, or you can just break it willy-nilly. Is that what we're saying? Seems so, right? It seems so. I mean, do you want to go up against the city? Well, they might be in a little bit of a position of weakness, but anytime you put New York City up against an individual landlord, even a big landlord, that's not going to go well, is it? Where real estate costs are too high, based on what? They weren't too high when you signed the damn lease, were they? No, it's like, oh, hey, thank heavens that you're working with us. Let's sign up this lease so we can get some people into your building. The city will consider immediate closure of facilities and termination of existing space agreements. Well, you already don't have enough, so you're telling me that you're going to close some down? Nah, you're not doing that. That just makes you look like an even further of an ass. You're going to keep these things going. These are just idle threats you're throwing out there. Because the alternative is you're going to take a few hundred people and just dump them onto the streets. You going to do that? All right, let's see that. I'll podcast on that. You betcha. Officials are also weighing whether it would be more cost effective to just buy up the locations that are used to house migrants instead of coughing up money to property owners, City Hall sources said. Any which one of these little things that the direction the city goes in is just a cluster. It's just a cluster. Hey, we can't budget, humanitarian crisis, but let's take over some real estate. Let's buy some real estate. This should work out just great. Let's buy up a lot of commercial space in the city and, because it'll make more sense. What about after you don't have this? What about after you get a new president? We actually have some control of what's happening at the border. What about that? Say that happens. I'm not saying it's gonna, but say that happens. You got all these buildings. Federal government's already got way more space than it needs, invariably in every single market, way more space than it needs because all the folks are working from home. I mean, the whole thing. Let's just buy some office space because this should be good. It's just mismanagement at every single step along the process. They just F everything up that they touch, right? The administration called on the shelter site landlords to submit their cost-cutting proposals by December 29th. You know what I'd say is I'd create a little video and say, hey, you signed a contract. Go F yourselves. Yeah. And then, you want to tear up the contract? We'll see you in court. I mean, the whole thing is just ridiculous, right? Shenanigans, I say, shenanigans. The city of New York is just jumped right into full-scale shenanigans, which they've always been into. But we need Rudy. Where's Rudy Giuliani in all this? I know he's flat broke. I know he's begging people on late night TV. You got any money I can borrow? Yeah, it was a joke, though. More than 67,300 migrants are currently being put up in the 214 taxpayer-funded shelter sites scattered across the 5 boroughs, City Hall's latest figures show. So are you telling me during the middle of New York City winter that if landlord doesn't play ball, that they're going to tear up the lease and pull all the people out of there? Is that what you're going to do? Is that really what your idle threat is now? 1 minute, you're just arms around all the illegal immigrants. Hey, sanctuary city, come on in. The next minute, you know what? Our budget is absolutely busted. Therefore, yeah, we got no more room for you. So everybody else in this ecosystem is going to have to work with us. It wasn't immediately clear how much the Big Apple currently forks out to rent these shelter spaces, but officials said that the crisis had already set the city back more than $7 billion. This is a budget buster. It is. Because when you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. Meaning, oh, hey, all those buses coming from Texas, Florida, and Arizona, they're bringing people here by the dozens, by the hundreds, by the thousands. And then we got to do something with them. How was this not thought of beforehand? But I guess it's just like all this other ridiculous policy that shouldn't be in place. Now, legalize drugs. It'll work out fine. Legalize hardcore drugs. It'll be fine. Southern border, open policy. It'll be fine. It's fine. Drugs just flowing through. The move comes after the mayor faced widespread backlash when he unveiled his updated 2024 financial plan last month after ordering all agencies to slash spending by an initial 5% to balance the city's budget, bulging $7.1 billion gap forecast for next year. These gaps are not getting better. You've got a bunch of things in the marketplace that are going against. You've got federal funding has dried up. You've got tax revenue is going the wrong direction. We're headed into a little bit of a recession or a soft landing, something along those lines. We're not headed into a emerging growth period by any means. So your tax revenue is going to keep going the wrong direction. Meanwhile, without anything changing at the southern border, yep, bring them on in. Bring them on in. It'll be good. It'll be fine. We're sanctuaries. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, that whole budget thing. That's not working out. Help us out, landlords. You need to cut your costs. Let's see what you got. Give us a proposal. I'd be like, here's my proposal for you. It's my middle finger. Under the plan, the mayor said migrant costs were set to be slashed by 20%, in part by reducing staffing and services. Really, you're already wildly understaffed and you're just going to whack that further. I mean, these folks that get into office, they have never run a budget. They have never run a business entity. You can just tell, right? We're going to rip up your contract and we're just going to tell you to go to hell unless you dropped your price. And nobody wants to fund a lawsuit against the city, right? Because the city's just so herky-jerky. You never know what direction they're going to go. And they've got the resources to pay for it or not, but they're going to figure out how to fund a lawsuit, right? After unveiling the proposed cuts, Adams subsequently ordered agencies to submit proposals for how they will trim spending by an additional 5% come January, before warning another round of cost cutting was likely by spring in a bid to offset the cost of the migrant crisis. You know what? Tough. You got yourself into it. Work your way out. Oh, you can't? Oh, you got to slash budgets hard and things are going to get worse. Huh. Yeah. Well, it's not like any of us have ever predicted that over the course of the last 45 podcasts. This is not a hard predicament to have predicted, is it? No. You can only take in XYZ number of people. And that's why these southern states have been so adamant about you got to have some border policy because we're already overrun. Budgets are busted. Resources are only finite. Yeah, you've got limited, but for some reason, these cities are just like, come on in. We're a sanctuary city. We're so proud of our sanctuary city. In Tuesday's letter, the administration blamed the cost-cutting measures on inadequate funding from the federal and state governments, not on the fact that you declared yourself a sanctuary city and just brought people in by the thousands. Not that. Oh, it's somebody else's fault. We're not getting enough money. We need some more money. Can you guys help us out? New York City is in the midst of responding to an unprecedented humanitarian crisis as thousands of migrants arrive seeking shelter and care, Schaeffler wrote. Despite months of advocacy and even with some financial support from the state and federal government, including by members of our own congressional delegation and local elected officials, New York has been largely left to fend for itself, absorbing the great financial costs to serve those new arrivals, the letter added. Unfortunately, this response by the city to a crisis of national scale has caused fiscal strain that now threatens to undermine municipal services. A budget only has so many dollars in it. Once you break that, then you got to go scrambling. You got to dial for dollars. Get on that phone. Hey, yeah, we got some troubles here. That whole sanctuary city thing and us bringing in all those illegals. You know, I know we talked about send them our way. But for just the next couple of years, we're trying to get the budget back in order. Would you mind just, send them off to Chicago? Just send them to Chicago. Send some to Spokane, Washington. I'm sure there are sanctuaries. Send some to LA. Let's get them some more sunshine, right? In New York City, short on sunshine. And this is happening during the winter. What a cluster. And this whole thing is just, I mean, who would have seen it coming? Everybody? You can't take these people on in record numbers like this and not expect there at some point in time to be a little pushback. And now that's what we're seeing. And in typical Democrat fashion, there's zero responsibility being taken. And everything is, well, they're not giving us enough money for all the people that we voluntarily took in. Hey now. And, that law in the books that Giuliani and another mayor of New York City tried to get out from underneath, that the law in the books is that every homeless individual in New York City has to have the opportunity at having a bed. That's just law. That's law. And so this notion of having all these illegal immigrants sleeping on the sidewalk, I mean, what's going on? What happened to that law? Oh, we're just no longer abiding by it because they physically can't, because they brought too many damn people in. And it just goes to show this whole border thing is just an enormous cluster that never had to be. If you would have had some policy in place, if you would have actually followed said policy, like almost all other countries do, and, advanced countries in the Western world do, they don't have this, come on in, it'll be fine. What was I saying? Somebody was making absolute fun. What were they saying? They were in some just tough part of some North American city. And they're like, yep, I'm going to make my way down to the southern border. I'm going to go into Mexico. I'm going to do a loop back around because, I need to get back on those federal benefits. And as an illegal immigrant, I feel that this is the best route for me. Just completely making fun of the whole fact that it's so easy to just come into the U.S. and we'll support you. There's got to be policy in place, but there's not. And it doesn't look like we're getting anytime soon. In fact, what we're getting is literally record numbers of people coming across said border. Yeah. And they got to go somewhere. So these sanctuary cities across the U.S., your budget's just going to get pushed just a little bit more, because where else are they going to put them? Where else are they going to put them? The inn is full. It's ruining our city. Yeah, I didn't see that one coming. What were you thinking? Yeah, they're thinking, oh, we're just going to try and help folks out as much as we can. Well, there's an end to that at some point. And when your pocketbook says, ooh, you got no more money, that's when the rubber hits the road. And that's where New York City is. That's where Chicago is. And they're looking at their budgets going, oh man, this is not going to work out well. This is not going to be good. Fiscal 2024. We are going to have to make some cuts. And that's what they're going to have to do. And that's why you're hearing all this stuff come out of Eric Adams' mouth. You're not helping us. We need more help. It's going to ruin the city. He's kind of been the poster child of bring us your poor, your weak, bring them from all over the world. And then all of a sudden, not so much. It's going to ruin the city. Hey, I know we talked about that, but yeah, we got a new game plan, and that's no more people in New York City, illegal immigrants. All right. That's it for me. Thanks so much for being here. I will catch up with you on the next one. To be continued. Because man, this story is going to go for a long time. It's going to go for a long time. Thanks again. Catch up in the next one. Bye for now.